within the tourism sector and with the establishment of the Global Tourism Resilience Crisis Management Center in Jamaica and its affiliate centers in other parts of the world. The establishment of the Global Tourism Resilience and Crisis Management Center was one of the key outcomes of the 2017 Montego Bay Conference on Jobs and Inclusive Growth Partnership for Sustainable Tourism. At that meeting, I emphasized the need for a broad-based, multi-sector coalition to mobilize private sector funding of climate change resilience initiatives in the region as the foundation for urgent action. The Latin American and Caribbean region vulnerability to adverse climate impacts as well as the need for more action remains urgent and must be appropriately considered as we move forward to embrace a global and regional outlook challenged by emerging economic and other geopolitical realities. As the world continues to recover from COVID-19 disruptions, the outlook appears sobering. The IMF, October 2022 World Economic Outlook, noted that global economic activity is experiencing a broad-based and sharper than expected slowdown, with inflation higher than seen in several decades, with tightening financial conditions in most regions, Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and the lingering COVID-19 pandemic all weighing heavily on the outlook. In this scenario, there are forecasts for global growth to slow to 2.7% in 2023, and for the Latin American and the Caribbean region to expand by 1.7%, well below global output, indicates in part the magnitude of the challenge ahead of us in the region. We know the power of tourism to contribute to global output, to improve livelihoods, and to bring economic benefits to many destinations and people around the world. However, if not managed properly, tourism can also lead to negative impacts, such as overcrowding, environmental degradation, and loss of local heritage. There is a need for urgent action on climate change and enhanced destination stewardship to ensure that tourist management incorporates local communities in decision-making, builds citizen resilience, and prioritizes the long-term health and sustainability of destinations by ensuring that tourism growth is balanced with the preservation of natural and cultural resources. We can create a positive and lasting legacy for future generations. With COVID-19 disruptions receding, potential setbacks associated with climate change remain of utmost concern. We must be prepared to address climate change multidimensional impacts while finding workable and implementable solutions. All of this requires detailed assessments on the pursuit of data-driven solutions. It requires embracing new technology and methodology for risk assessment to establish security standards and better planning in our countries. The OES has embarked on an ambitious goal of working with the region to develop a science and data-based agenda for building resilience and disaster risk management. Last October, we convened the international and regional community, leading organizations and academic institutions, including the University of the West Indies, the private sector, and governments, to begin to lay the groundwork for building a collaboratory on risk and resilience, comprising national, regional, and global agencies to serve as a strategic planning entity to facilitate co-creation and the sharing of knowledge, as well as a regional coordination mechanism charged with aligning risk abatement with institutions responsible for risk horizontal coordination. It is our hope that the Global Tourism Resilience Center will actively engage in this endeavor to ensure that tourism is well represented. In building sustainable and resilient tourism, we must recognize the vital role of micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises, many of them tourism-related, which constitute over 95% of all businesses in our member states. Their contributions to our economies represent the bedrock of economic stability. These medium and small companies must receive more targeted strategic intervention. Considering the increased prevalence of global disruption, climate change, pandemic, inflation, our thinking and investment needs to focus on resilient solutions that seek to, in the best case, prevent these disruptions, and in the worst case, mitigate the damage from them. There is an ongoing need to enhance the resilience of medium and small companies, including through technology-enabled products and services. Regional and international organizations must find ways to support these efforts. At the OES, we will continue to do our part. Dear friends, as we work to chart the course for the future, we are, after all, in the land of Bob Marley, and I cannot resist the urge to cite one of his famous lines, "In this great future, we cannot forget the past." And so I recall the recommendation from the second Davos Conference on Climate Change and Tourism in 2007, which, when juxtaposed with the outcomes of COP27, still remain valid today. The recommendations call for promoting and undertaking investment in energy efficiency tourist programs, implementing climate-focused product diversification to reposition destination and support systems, and fostering all-season supply and demand. Therefore, as we deliberate over the next few days on the theme of this conference, rethinking tourist investment through sustainability and resilience, I urge you to assess what has been accomplished since 2007 to ensure that each time we recommit to turn deliberations at gatherings such as this one into concrete solutions that improve the lives and livelihoods of our people. After all, resilience is about people. We must place people and their ability to thrive at the center of our debate, our efforts, and indeed our investments. As you prepare to celebrate World Tourism Resilience Day on February 17th, I reiterate the proud support of the OES for this special day, and again commend Jamaica in leading the efforts towards its observance. The challenges we face are formidable, but not insurmountable. I hope that the notion of sustainability will become even more firmly embedded within our cultures, from the food we eat to the clothes we wear and the decisions we make. I applaud the many tourism stakeholders who made sustainability pledges, decreasing their environmental impact and increasing their environmental stewardship. But more remains to be done. We must play in the long game and recommit to strengthening climate action through mitigation and adaptation. It is only in doing so that we can secure tourism and our investment in it. I wish you much success in your deliberations this week and pledge the OES continued partnership in your efforts. The future of the Americas and indeed of our planet depends on the commitment of all, large and small, developed and developing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Excellency. I now invite the Most Honourable Andrew Holness, Prime Minister of Jamaica, to give his keynote address.
Thank you, Fiona. Good morning, everyone. Allow me to acknowledge our Minister of Tourism, the Honourable Edmund Bartlett, his Permanent Secretary, who prayed for us. Thank you for your prayers. Other ministers of government who are here, other permanent secretaries who are here. A good friend of Jamaica, His Excellency Louis Almagro Lemez, Secretary General of the Organization of American States, Dr. Stacey Richards Kennedy, Regional Manager for the Caribbean, CAF Development Bank of America. In his absence, we still acknowledge our good friend, Dr. Talib Rafai, who is listening. Government officials and members of parliament and members of the public and private sector who are here, local and international representatives of the tourism fraternity, including ministers and other officials from overseas who are visiting with us, members of the media, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and everyone else who is listening. It is with great pleasure that I address this distinguished audience at the Global Tourism and Resilience Conference. I extend a warm Jamaican welcome to all participants from overseas, and I particularly welcome you to our capital, Kingston, the heartbeat of the Caribbean. commendations are in order for Minister Edmund Bartlett on his great work and leadership. And I thank the Ministry of Tourism for Jamaica, the Global Tourism Resilience and Crisis Management Center, and the University of the West Indies for organizing this conference. The government of Jamaica is proud to endorse this crucial forum that will provide a platform for fruitful engagement among stakeholders, policymakers, industry leaders, innovators, scholars, researchers from all fields. Your input, expertise, experience, and insight will be crucial to developing the problem-solving tools to confront challenges, to building resilience across countries and regions. The staging of this conference also coincides with the recent declaration of the United Nations that February 17th will henceforth be commemorated annually as Global Tourism Resilience Day. I'm honored to have contributed a small part. Most credit goes to Minister Bartlett and his team, to the outcome of months of high-level discussions and diplomatic engagements, as well as my own plea to the 77th session of the United Nations General Assembly held last year for the official designation of February 17th as Global Tourism Resilience Day. Overall, this designation emphasizes the importance of sustainable and collaborative efforts to build tourism resilience globally to fuel sustainable growth and development. Tourism continues to be a major source of income, foreign currency earnings, tax revenues, and employment for many developing countries, including small island developing states in particular. The Caribbean has been singled out as the most tourism-dependent region of the world. While tourism remains the lifeline of many other small, undiversified economies in the Pacific Ocean, the Indian Ocean, the Mediterranean Sea, and the Atlantic Ocean, it is the Caribbean that has its greatest dependency on tourism. The reliance on tourism by billions of people globally has resulted in the industry being recognized by the United Nations as a catalyst for the achievement of several sustainable development goals, such as poverty reduction, eradication of hunger, reduced inequality, gender equality, and decent work and economic growth. Tourism acts as a catalyst for economic growth and development, mainly through its induced economic impact through the creation of vital linkages with several other segments of national economies, such as manufacturing, commerce, utilities, agriculture, transportation, the cultural and creative industries, construction and banking, and finance. As part of building the sustainable and resilient tourism which we all want, these linkages must be strengthened and the net value added to local economies from tourism enhanced. Given its tremendous global contribution, there is a clear case to be made for the tourism sector to be protected as a global asset. This is against the backdrop that the sector is increasingly being exposed to volatility and disruptions arising from a range of both traditional and non-traditional threats, including natural disasters, climate change and global warming, terrorism, insecurity and political instability, cyber vulnerabilities, economic recessions, epidemics and pandemics. Indeed, tourism is affected by almost every global shock. Many of these shocks can present themselves suddenly and with devastating impact, as with the recent COVID-19 pandemic. The pandemic has underscored the importance of a proactive, cross-cutting approach to building resilience across the entire tourism value chain. This entails integrating the latest research findings, innovations, and technology to create sustainable tourism practices. It requires a shift to more sustainable consumption, production, and energy use practices. It is crucial to invest in human capacity building and support small businesses and local communities to achieve competitiveness and to ensure equitable economic growth. Public-private partnerships will play a crucial role in building tourism resilience, and governments must work with the private sector to implement policies and strategies that enhance the sector's capacity to respond to crises. An important focus of this conference, which I wholeheartedly endorse, is the thrust that will be placed on harnessing the untapped tourism potential of the African continent. While the African continent has been increasingly directing its attention towards tourism as a driver of economic development, given its rich cultural heritage, wildlife, and natural resources, there are still many barriers that constrain these efforts. Consequently, the tourism sector in Africa remains relatively underdeveloped, offering significant potential for growth and development. This conference presents an opportunity to holistically engage the needs of African destinations and to better understand the efforts, resources, and investments that need to be directed towards meeting them. This conference also marks the first of its kind to examine the viability of an African-Caribbean tourism trade mechanism. As the world rapidly evolves, it has become essential to reassess our development models and strengthen areas of functional cooperation with non-traditional partners. The African and Caribbean tourism trade model presents a tremendous opportunity for both regions to achieve shared economic growth and development, create jobs, increase bilateral investment, and improve infrastructure. This model will also enable the exchange of best practices, sharing of experiences, and identification of new opportunities for growth and development. From a long-term perspective, a robust tourism trade model has the advantage of providing a cushion against economic shocks and crises. For example, the prevailing evidence indicates that while the COVID-19 pandemic has had a devastating impact on the global economy, including the tourism industry, countries that have diversified their tourism markets and have established strong tourism trade relations have been better able to withstand the impact of the crisis. In conclusion, the Global Tourism and Resilience Conference provides an excellent opportunity to explore and engage critical challenges to enhancing the competitiveness and sustainability of African and Caribbean tourism by fostering cross-sectoral collaborations, knowledge sharing, and partnership. This conference will seek to identify ways to build resilience and drive economic growth through the tourism industry. The COVID-19 pandemic showed us clearly that the tourism industry is simultaneously one of the most resilient, yet one of the most volatile segments of economies. And this conference provides an opportunity to reflect on the evolution of the industry, as well as sharpen the readiness of the sector to anticipate and meet future challenges while soaring to new heights. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you, and I wish you a very successful and engaging conference.
Thank you, Prime Minister. I'm going to ask you to keep standing because I know that you have a very tight schedule and you are to actually leave. So I don't know if you have a few more moments with us, PM? Not at all. Okay, so please remain standing as we acknowledge our Prime Minister's departure.
Have a good conference, everyone.
All right, you could be seated now. Thank you so much. Pia, should we wait for Minister to come back or just continue? Okay. All right, I am going to invite Dr. Stacy Richards Kennedy, Regional Manager for the Caribbean, CAF, the Development Bank of Latin America, to give her remarks. Thank you.
Greetings, everyone. Even in their absence, I would still like to recognize His Excellency Luis Almagro Lemes, OAS Secretary General, as well as the Most Honourable Prime Minister Holness. I'd also like to recognize other ministers of government from Jamaica and also from our visiting delegations, and the members of the media who are here with us, and all of our distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is my distinct pleasure to bring greetings on behalf of the Executive President of CAF, Development Bank of Latin America and the Caribbean, Mr. Sergio Diaz-Granados. CAF is extremely proud to be the lead sponsor for this groundbreaking conference focused on global tourism resilience, an issue of vital concern to us as a leading multilateral development bank in the region. We are also pleased that this conference was organized by the Global Tourism Resilience and Crisis Management Center in Jamaica, one of our very own CAF shareholder countries. And let me take this opportunity to congratulate Minister Bartlett and his co-director, Professor Lloyd Waller, and to thank Minister Bartlett for the very engaging meetings that we had with ministers of tourism from the Caribbean in FITUR, the tourism fair that was held in Madrid, Spain, just last month. It was from those discussions that the decision was taken by CAF to immediately mobilize grant funding to sponsor this very critical tourism resilience conference. So permit me also to place on record CAF's congratulations to the government and people of Jamaica on the most recent announcement by the United Nations that Global Tourism Resilience Day will be commemorated annually on Friday, 17th February, as you have heard from the Honourable Prime Minister. This was a result of Jamaica's leadership and advocacy on the global stage, placing the spotlight on resilience as a pivotal aspect of tourism, and reminding the entire world that tourism development in island states encompasses unique multidimensional challenges, which must be taken into account and thus will require increased investment. So thank you for this, Minister, for all of your leadership. And let's all come together and show a big appreciation. Big up Jamaica. Let me tell you, I beamed with Caribbean pride when Minister Bartlett shared the news with me. No surprise, though, because this achievement is totally in keeping with the Jamaican spirit, which is we lickle, but we talawa. And we join you in celebrating that. As regional manager for the Caribbean, someone who is also married to a Jamaican national and who lived for many years here in Jamaica, being here with you for the opening of this conference feels very much like a homecoming. Having served up until last August as former Pro-Vice Chancellor for Global Affairs here at the University of the West Indies Regional Headquarters, I am doubly proud that this conference was organized by the Global Tourism, Resilience and Crisis Management Center here at UWI. CAF is committed to serving as the green bank of Latin America and the Caribbean, and the bank that will help to drive the reactivation of economies across Latin America and the Caribbean following the pandemic. We are a bank that is owned by Latin America and the Caribbean for Latin America and the Caribbean. And we are recognized by our member countries as being agile, being client-focused, and being flexible in our approaches to work with our member countries in supporting their development priorities. And I know, Minister Bartlett, you can attest to this agility. So last year, let me share with you that CAF's board approved a capitalization of $7 billion, which was the largest in the history of CAF, and also a demonstration of the confidence of CAF's shareholder countries in the strategic direction of the bank. This will enable CAF to double its portfolio of investments in Latin America and the Caribbean to $60 billion by 2030. And as the Green Bank of Latin America and the Caribbean, we have also pledged to commit $25 billion for climate financing, roughly 40% of our approved investments by 2026. So this is very much in line with what we will be speaking about over the next few days, global tourism resilience. With the opening of a regional office for the Caribbean based in Port of Spain, Trinidad, CAF is now even closer to the Caribbean and stands ready to support our member countries, not just Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago, and Barbados, who are from the Caribbean, but also other CARICOM countries that are interested in benefiting from CAF's development assistance. And with regard to tourism development, CAF recognizes the important multiplier effect of the tourism sector and is prioritizing support for tourism projects in keeping with our commitment to assist countries with revitalizing their economies and recovering quickly from the fiscal challenges that were precipitated by the COVID-19 pandemic. CAF is placing significant emphasis on a new portfolio of services linked to tourism, adopting an approach that focuses on sustainable development of the tourism sector, not just the economic returns. And given that tourism is highly sensitive to climate change and the impacts of extreme weather events, CAF's objective is to contribute to supporting national and regional efforts at promoting sustainable and regenerative tourism. This not only minimizes negative effects on the environment, but also places emphasis on the restoration and enhancement of a country's natural and cultural assets, and on equitably increasing tourism's contribution to people's well-being. CAF's participation in this conference goes beyond our sponsorship. We are contributing also to the agenda through our thought leadership on sustainable and regenerative tourism, and we are very much looking forward to the opportunity for knowledge exchange and cross-fertilization of ideas with all of you from the different countries and regions that you represent. In this afternoon session, we will have a dialogue hosted by our manager for climate action and biodiversity, Alicia Montalvo. Alicia, if you can just quickly stand so everyone can see who you are. I also, unfortunately, will have to leave to attend the CARICOM heads, but Alicia and the rest of the team will be here and stand ready to engage with each and every one of you. I am confident that the Global Tourism Resilience Conference will pave the way for greater regional and international cooperation around these very important principles of sustainable tourism development. Know that CAF will continue to be a trusted and reliable development partner as we advance on this journey together. I close by reiterating my gratitude to Prime Minister Holness in his absence, to Minister Bartlett, to Professor Waller, and the entire organizing committee that worked very hard to put together this important conference. In closing, I reiterate CAF's commitment to supporting tourism resilience, and I wish you all successful deliberations over the next 2 days. Do feel free to engage with our colleagues, and I will also close by asking you to turn your attention to the screen for a short video from CAF. I thank you.
With more than half a century of presence in Latin America and the Caribbean, working to promote sustainable development and regional integration, CAF, Development Bank of Latin America and the Caribbean, is one of the main sources of green financing for its 21 member countries and provides support to help countries meet their sustainable development goals. Becoming the Green Bank of the region and the Bank for Economic Recovery are pillars of CAF's strategy, for which support for a new forum of tourism will play a fundamental role. The tourism industry accounts for about 10% of the world's gross domestic product. The average tourism GDP in the region is 8%, and the employment generated is 12%. Therefore, tourism is an absolute priority for the development of CAF member countries. By involving many other sectors, actors, levels and interests of society, the protection of the environment and local culture are essential for the tourism activity. Since it is an industry that is highly vulnerable to the effects of external and internal forces, such as economic and financial, health, climate crisis and natural, social, cultural disasters, political conflicts, among others. The effects of climate change related to the generation of greenhouse gases, indiscriminate use of plastic, as well as the high consumption of water and energy, all have an adverse impact on the environment and can cause the degradation of biodiversity and the loss of local identity. But tourism can also contribute positively to the conservation and regeneration of the ecosystem on which this activity depends, and channel efforts to support countries and societies in achieving the sustainable development goals. Because tourism, climate, and biodiversity are strongly interrelated, working towards developing them with sustainability criteria presents us with a great opportunity. CAF, Development Bank of Latin America and the Caribbean, works towards the development of a sustainable and regenerative tourism industry. This is a proposal to promote tourism through a comprehensive action strategy that can facilitate the reactivation, strengthening, and consolidation of tourism as a key sector for improving living conditions in tourism destinations, for generating economic and employment opportunities, and serving as a catalyst for the enhancement of cultural heritage and ecosystemic services, reinforcing environmental, economic, and social resilience and sustainability at all stages of its value chain. Because of its first-hand knowledge of the region, as well as its commitment as the Green Bank of Latin America and the Caribbean, and its experience in key sectors for tourism, such as the environment, infrastructure, and provision of basic services, among others, CAF has the opportunity to effectively promote in a regional and multi-sectional manner the financing of tourism projects with the public and private sectors, which take into account the following characteristics: identity, social equality and enhancement of cultural heritage, biodiversity and ecosystem services, vulnerability to climate change, local and national governance, sustainability and circular economy criteria. CAF offers financing opportunities for the public sector through technical assistance and knowledge, sovereign and private loans to finance basic green infrastructure that is low in carbon emissions and resilient to climate change, and investments in electricity generation, water treatment, waste, among others. CAF is also a catalyst for global green funds and climate funds, and has mobilized millions of dollars of green investment and grant funding, working hand in hand with our strategic allies through projects that improve the quality of life of those who live in tourist destinations that preserve, protect, and regenerate nature and respect the cultures visited, thus celebrating and supporting their cultural heritage while promoting sustainable and inclusive economic growth. Thanks to the exuberant biodiversity and culture the region possesses, we have a golden opportunity to work and promote the economic and social development of the region. CAF is ready to work together with the governments of Latin America and the Caribbean in the construction of a living and sustainable tourism model. CAF, Development Bank of Latin America and the Caribbean.
Dr. Kennedy had to leave, but thank you so much and for that comprehensive video presentation. I'd like to now invite Dr. Talib Rifai, Chairman of ITIC Limited and Invest Tourism Limited, and co-chair of the GTRCMC, to give his video presentation.
Hello, and welcome everybody. It's a great pleasure having you here again in beautiful Jamaica. I truly miss all of you since I left you in W2. It's a true honor to be here with you in this beautiful Jamaican morning. I'm here this morning in my capacity as chairman of ITIC as well, which is a wonderful organization that wants to introduce investment to our wonderful travel and tourism sector. I am as well the co-chair of Resilience Council in London and the GTRCMC in Jamaica. And I want to thank them all for attending here in this beautiful Jamaica. I want to congratulate Minister Bartlett for attending the UN session where it was approved that the Resilience Day, Tourism Resilience Day, would be the 17th of February. I hope that this is going to be a very, very rewarding occasion. I also want to welcome you all next year to Malaga. I hope Malaga is the host of the Expo 2027. And I am sure that Spain would be a very good destination for all of you to be there. We all know how important tourism and travel is. It's our life and livelihood. 1 out of 9 or 10 jobs all over the world are created by our sector. More than 10% of world GDP is generated by our sector, a sector of peace and understanding among people of the world, contributing so much to all the 17th CGD, Sustainable Development Goals, but still undervalued and under-recognized by the world around us. It's a fact. I want to thank the CAF for making this video and singling out tourism as a sector that would be of importance. Dear friends, I want to suggest here that we, the people working in this industry, carry most of the blame. We only talk to each other. This is why it's important to open up and talk to the finance and investment community, as well as to our political setup and leaders. I wanted to congratulate Mr. Bartlett for having Prime Minister Holness here with us this morning. Banks don't hear our voice, our plea for investment. They simply don't understand us. That is why ITIC is important. It's a bridge